We are always hearing that nursing is in high demand. There's no shortage of jobs. But at the same time, so many nurses are walking away from the profession and saying enough is enough. Why is it happening? And what does it mean for the future of nursing? In today's video, we are breaking down the real reasons behind this growing crisis and what it means for all of us. And for those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Pawan. I'm a registered nurse based in Sydney, Australia. I graduated at the end of 2017, completed my new graduate program in 2018, and have been working as a registered nurse ever since. During this time, especially after those long, busy shifts, I've definitely had moments where I questioned myself if this career path is sustainable. Based on my personal experience and having worked with so many nurses throughout my nursing career, I've been able to conclude a few points, rather reasons, I think what's driving the nurses away from this career path. I've come across nurses who left pretty much after the new graduate program, and some who didn't even get through the program and left midway. And mind you, this is in contrast with a few other nurses who've been in the nursing profession for over 20 years. It is a bit concerning, as more nurses are needed than ever before across all states in Australia. So let's dive in. Pointing out the obvious first, nursing is a demanding career, both emotionally and physically. Most nurses work long shifts. The department I work in, we have 8, 10 and 12-hour shifts, but for some departments, the only shifts available are 12-hour shifts. And you're constantly on your feet. You barely get any time to actually sit down, if any, and that's usually to do your documentation, which means that it actually takes a big physical toll on your body. And not only that, sometimes there's not even enough time to recharge between the shifts. And that's totally because of the shortage of nurses all the time. But also, for example, if I'm finishing a night shift this morning, I only have a sleep day and I'm going back to a morning shift tomorrow. They try and not roster you like that, but it can happen. And over time, this kind of shift work makes you chronically drained and tired. I mean, think about it. Long shifts, missing breaks, going from one task to the other, and barely getting to sit down. It can make you feel like you're constantly giving and never really recharging. And when this goes on for weeks to months or even years, it leads to burnout. But that's just one aspect of the job, being physically overworked and tired. But as a nurse, you're constantly dealing with stressful situations, illnesses and deaths. And it's not uncommon for nurses to feel emotionally exhausted. All in all, nursing is a demanding career, which can leave you physically and mentally drained for long periods of time. I've definitely felt it myself. And you start to wonder, how long do I keep doing this? And unfortunately, so many nurses are deciding the answer, not much longer. Now let's talk about short staffing and heavy workloads, because this is clearly one of the reasons why so many nurses are choosing to leave. It's one thing to have a busy shift, it's another to be short 3 staff members on the day and still be expected to give you 100%. This doesn't just make our jobs harder, it makes it feel impossible. It's stressful, it's unsafe, it's demoralizing. And at times, it makes you feel like you're constantly putting out fires but never really catching up. And I'm sure the patients feel it too. They are not getting the best care they deserve. I've been on some shifts where we are 3 staff members down on the day, especially during winter when it's flu season and so many staff members are off sick because of flu. And on days like those, you feel like you're constantly juggling too many tasks, you're skipping your meal breaks to catch up, and feeling like you're always one step behind. So instead of having time to truly connect with your patients and provide compassionate care that brought you into nursing in the first place, you're stuck in the cycle of rushing from one task to the next. So this constant rush, it's not just physically draining, it's mentally exhausting too. And you almost start to feel guilty, like you're failing your patients, even when you're doing your absolute best. And that guilt can weigh on you day after day. And the worst part is, these staffing shortages are new. They've been around for years. And after a while, it's enough to make even the most passionate nurse question if this is sustainable. Now let's talk about another reason why so many nurses are leaving: the lack of support and the constant feeling of being undervalued. As we all know, nursing is an incredibly demanding job, both emotionally and physically. We are not just doing tasks, we are holding hands during scary moments. We are advocating for our patients, and we are often the first ones there when something goes wrong. But so often, it almost feels like no one really sees that. I remember a really busy shift I had in the emergency department one day, and I was working at triage that day. It was a morning shift, and it was 1 o'clock and nobody has had their breaks. None of the doctors, none of the admin staff, none of the nurses, nobody had their breaks. Because the flow of patients was so constant and some of them were really sick, needing a lot of care, and we probably were understaffed that day as well. But it was around 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon, and I'm not the kind of person who would have breakfast before coming, so I was running really low on energy, and I started to have a headache. So I told one of the team leaders that I'm gonna try and go on my break as soon as the flow of the patient slowed down. And as soon as I said that, I felt this instant judgment in their response. Like I was doing something wrong by finally taking a break to eat and recharge. I mean, I do understand that nobody in the department has had their breaks, but in that moment, I stuck up for myself and I told them that I'm gonna go for a 10-minute break because there's no one waiting in the waiting area to be triaged. And all the people who are actually waiting to be seen by the doctors have been looked after. Like they've had their pain relief and whatever treatment we can do in the waiting area, that's been done. So I'm gonna go and have this 10-15 minute break. And I just went. I went to the break room, sculling down my lunch alone because nobody else was there. And soon one of the admin staff walked in. She was probably coming to just make herself a cup of tea or coffee. And as soon as she looked at me, she asked me whether I was okay. And you know the moment when you're not okay and someone comes up to you and say, "Hey, you okay?" That's when you lose the battle. And I started crying. And I told her that I felt so undervalued and underappreciated. Like all the hard work I've been doing, it's not being seen. And how it was no wonder that so many nurses are leaving the profession. And then she sat down with me and reminded me that I was actually appreciated. And she even went out to the flower shop and got me a flower with a little note that said that you are really appreciated. And I still have that note on my fridge. That small gesture meant so much. But it also highlighted that how rare it feels to be actually seen and supported. Because at the end of the day, feeling valued shouldn't be a luxury. It's essential to keep any nurse going. Now let's talk about the impact of the pandemic. COVID-19 completely changed the landscape of nursing. And for so many of us, that was the final straw. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were on the front lines every single day, caring for patients who were scared and alone, and doing it all while worrying about our own health and the safety of our own families. The physical exhaustion was one thing, but the emotional toll, that's something you carry with you long after the shift ends. Most of us worked in conditions we've never experienced before. The constant fear of infection, the endless PPE, patient after patient who didn't make it, and very little time to process any of it. It felt like there was no time to grieve, no time to decompress, one crisis after the other. And I remember simple things like seeing patients' family face-to-face felt like a luxury. And so much of the job became about navigating new rules, new fears, and so much uncertainty. And for a lot of nurses, the stress and the trauma didn't just fade away when things calmed down. And for many nurses, COVID was the moment when they realized that something had to give. And they realized that they needed to prioritize their own health, their families, and their own mental well-being. And while some of us were able to hang on, a lot of the incredible nurses decided to leave the profession altogether. The pandemic reminded us that we are human first, nurses second. And if we are not really looking after ourselves, we can't truly care for others. And some of the issues that we've been talking about, the burnout, the lack of support, staffing issues, were all magnified during COVID. And that's why the impact is still being felt today. Next up, I want to talk about how nurses are seeking lower stakes roles. Another trend that we are seeing in nurses is that they're moving into roles within the healthcare system or within the hospital they're working at, where the stakes aren't as high and the job isn't that emotionally or physically draining. Some are shifting into roles like teaching, working with the education programs for the nursing students, or moving into allied health areas where pressure isn't constant. These roles still make a difference, but they often come with more regular hours, less direct patient care, and more predictable routines. And for a lot of nurses, this is a way where they can keep doing what they love, supporting patients, sharing knowledge, but without feeling that constant burnout and overwhelm. I've seen colleagues who were amazing bedside nurses and now they've moved into more clinical education roles or teaching roles, and you can clearly see how much more balanced and fulfilled they feel. I myself decided to do hybrid work after the pandemic. I secured myself a position outside the hospital, which is with the Australian Red Cross, a completely different role to what I was doing at the hospital, but I still work at the hospital just to keep my skills up, and I genuinely do enjoy it. But I do feel that if I was working at the hospital full-time instead of having the 2 part-time jobs, I wouldn't feel as balanced and fulfilled myself either. So it's not about giving up, it's about finding a way to keep going without losing yourself along the way. So if you are feeling that pull yourself, you're not alone. There are so many other paths in nursing, and you deserve to find the one that helps you thrive. On a side note, I've actually got another video on my channel where I talk about all the roles that are available outside the hospital for nurses right here in Australia. So if you are one of those nurses who's looking for a bit of a change, make sure you check that one out. Now let's talk about why am I still here? Despite knowing all this, why am I still choosing to work in the nursing profession? You might be wondering that after working in nursing for past 7 years, going through the pandemic, and even working in the emergency department during those tough times, why didn't I leave the profession just like so many nurses have? But honestly, for me, it's been about finding the balance and making sure I look after myself along the way. Just like I stood up for myself when I wanted to go for that 10-minute break and didn't feel guilty about it. Well, first of all, after the COVID-19 pandemic, I felt a little burnt out too. And that's when I decided that I needed another role outside the hospital. So I started exploring and I found this role with the Australian Red Cross, which is completely different to what I do in the hospital. So now I actually work at 2 different jobs, both part-time. And it's been such a game changer for me. It keeps things interesting and balanced, instead of just doing one full-time job that was draining me. And secondly, I always make sure that I take breaks and do stuff outside of work, be it with family, with friends, just to look after my mental health. And it doesn't have to be a big thing, just going for a short walk, spending time in nature. I'm a big promoter of being outdoors, so even a short walk in nature does it for me. And these little breaks really help me recharge. And just generally as well, I tend to look after myself. I eat reasonably healthy, and I try and exercise fairly regularly and practice yoga and make sure that I'm listening to my body's needs. And lastly, I take what I call mini retirements, where I go for a little holiday for maybe a week, could be overseas or even just a new place in Australia. And these mini retirements have been such a lifesaver. They give me a chance to actually step away, recharge, and come back to work feeling more fresh and energized. Even though it's such a demanding career, I found ways to look after myself, protect my mental health, keep things interesting, and make sure that I bring my best self to the patients I care for. And that's why I'm still here. So yes, nursing is hard. There's no doubt about that. But before you make the decision to leave the profession entirely, consider other options outside the hospital. Teaching, community health, or even some allied roles that might reignite your passion for care. And while you're at it, don't forget to look after yourself. Find time to spend with your family and friends, and do stuff outside of work that lights you up. It makes such a big difference. And here's a little tip for any new nurses joining us. You are going to have tough days, but they don't define you as a nurse or a person. Keep learning, stay curious, and remember, it's okay to ask for help when you need it. Thanks for watching, guys, and let me know in the comment section below if you've ever felt this way and what's helped you through those hard shifts. And if you're just starting a new journey, welcome. You are stronger and capable than you know. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.